what is up? Welcome to my channel. My name is Franka and I'm glad you're here. Today's gonna be a little bit of a different video because this Hayley Pham ARC book bad review drama has been stuck in my head for the past like 2 weeks. And I fear it's because my favorite creator that does like commentary style videos on drama, his name is Marky. Love him. I swear this guy finds the most like niche topics on TikTok to talk about. And I see it and I'm like, I know nothing about that. I didn't hear about that. These videos, millions of views. Never heard about it. So when I was scrolling through TikTok and I saw this video of this lady going, I know y'all saw that review of Hayley Pham's book that was a little too far. And I was like, whoa, hold up. We did not hear about that. So I went on a deep dive. I found the original TikTok and I was like, oh my God. I went to YouTube, looked at Marky's channel. Marky had not made a video on it. And I was so disappointed. So Marky, if you happen to stumble upon this video, please make a video about it. I'm dying to see it. And then I was a little disappointed that I didn't see a video because Marky had covered book drama on TikTok before with Larry, which is another creator that I watch. And I was like, oh my God, two worlds colliding. This is crazy. And then I realized I had free will and I could just make my own video. So here we are. Let's get into the drama. If you're unaware who Hayley Pham is, that's all right. I will tell you. So Hayley Pham is a YouTuber. She started YouTube around 2012, I believe. She started doing like makeup and dance videos and then kind of transitioned into lifestyle content. And I'm not even gonna lie, when I was in middle school, I used to watch Hayley Pham videos. So this is not like a hate video or of any kind. And now she's recently transitioned, not recently, I think it's been a couple years, but like recently that I've learned of it, is she has transitioned into making book content. So she is a booktuber, which is crazy because I was like, oh my God, I'm slowly getting back into reading. Like when I was in middle school, I was like a little bookworm and I've slowly gotten back into it. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. I used to watch her in middle school. Now she's into Booktube as I'm getting back into books. I was like, this is perfect. So I started watching her videos. A couple weeks, like a month or two before this situation happened, I'd stumbled upon Hayley Pham's short of her saying she's going to write her own book, and we can take a look at that. She has since made 6 like mini videos talking about her process of writing a book and all the way until like it being up for pre-order. So I'll have those videos playing behind me. I don't think I will use sound for them unless I think of something I want to say. But yeah, she made a total of 6 videos. Now, when I came across this controversy, I was like, okay, like I saw it like a month ago. I was under the pretense that Hayley had been writing this book for like a couple weeks. And that is an exaggeration. I thought she started writing this book at some point this year and everything came really quick and fast. Mind you, I went back and looked at the videos. The girl has been writing this book for a year and a month, which I do think is a long time. A year is a long time in my books. I don't know typically how long it takes someone to write a book, so it could be a short time still. But I was under the pretense that this book was like rushed and it was just something that like happened overnight kind of thing, with the way some people have been talking about it. I was a little perplexed by that because I was like, oh damn, she's been writing this book for a while and I just noticed last month. Like that's crazy. So yeah, so we go through her whole process. She has the first video, which is obviously like her telling everyone I'm gonna write a book and her writing it. She does one with the editing phase, and then she does one where she's getting published by this publishing house called Atria Books, which we'll get into in a second. And then she also has her last video saying like the pre-order's out, that kind of thing. So that's like the whole backstory of Hayley Pham writing a book and her YouTube presence. So let's get into the publishing house. It is Atria Books, I believe. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. I think I heard it said once and I was like, I know how to say it. Thank you very much. So I might not. I might be lying to all of you. So the interesting thing that I find, the parent company of Atria Books is Simon & Schuster. That is such a tongue twister, by the way. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but every time I've tried to say it, I've like had to hype myself up. I'm like, it's okay, you can say it. This book is set to be published on March 3rd, 2026, which is a while away. So you're probably sitting here thinking to yourself, how could this book have gotten a bad review if it hasn't even come out yet? I don't know if it's like the actual like publishing houses or like who sends the books out, but there's this thing called ARC readers. If you don't know what an ARC reader is, ARC stands for Advanced Reader Copy. So people are given these books for free to help generate buzz and to also kind of like critique what they like about the story, which isn't an uncommon thing. If you've ever seen like influencers get free PR, it's to hype up the business and hopefully get that person's followers to click and buy something from their store. Also, if you think about it, like also in like movies, when people do press tours, it's to generate hype, kind of tell the story a little bit, say what they liked about it, blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Or even like food reviews. In a sense, those are pretty hot topic right now. Like people go review the food and tell you if it's worth going to, which obviously is very helpful, because even if you're online shopping, if you find something that's really cute and someone like writes on there, I bought this dress, it was completely ripped, the sizing was completely off, are you gonna buy it? Probably not. Let's get into the TikTok review that started this whole fiasco.
I was checking my ARC website earlier and I saw that Hayley Pham's new book, Just Friends, is available to download. So I'm going to attempt to read it. Attempt because I'm in a slump. I'll give you my opinion, whether or not it is objectively good, not whether or not I like it, because it is a second chance, and I historically don't like second chance. I'm interested to see what it's like.
She is, like, off the bat in her review saying she doesn't like second chance romances, which obviously you're probably not gonna like the book if you don't like the main trope the book is about. I feel like TikTok has heavily trained people to only look for tropes in books, and I feel like sometimes the trope kind of ruins the story because you know what's gonna happen. But obviously, she clearly doesn't like this trope. Obviously, if she was shopping for a book, she probably would not pick this out. Also, to be honest, not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of romance books. So obviously, if I wrote a review on this book, it probably wouldn't be that good because I don't really like romance books. I feel like also people don't take into account like people have preferences in what they read. Obviously, I prefer fantasy books. I do still read romance. Do I like it as much as the fantasy books? Not really. But obviously, I think another thing is I don't know who sends out the arcs. I don't know if they just like pick it based off like, okay, you're popular, here you go, here's a book. Or if they go, oh, you really like romance books, here's this romance book. You know what I mean? I don't know how much research they do when they give the book out, but I feel like that could also be something maybe to look out for. Because obviously, if you give someone a romance book to review who doesn't like romance, they're not gonna like it. Like, the book isn't made for them. You know what I mean? But also, on the other hand, you could also see it as, okay, well, like, if someone who doesn't read romance really likes this book, that's, like, a big deal, per se. So, like, maybe that's what they were going for. Did it work in this case? Not really. But I wonder if that's something they could maybe fix, like making sure they're giving these books to someone who actually likes that genre. Obviously, it would make for better reviews. Maybe, possibly, unless they actually hate it. But I think making sure they know their audience that they're giving these arcs to is something they could keep in mind for next time. Whoever does it, I literally don't know who does this stuff, but that's like maybe something they should do in the future.
My prediction before we get into it, the writing will try to be reminiscent of Emily Henry, because I know she really loves Emily Henry and her writing. I know that the romance will be closed door. She does not like open door. Bummer. I think, for no reason other than my assumption, it's going to be a little more showing than telling. Don't kill me. Okay, I'm gonna start it now.
Alright, she gives her before thoughts and pulls up this screen of, I guess, a text she had put out. I guess, like, a text she had texted herself or something, giving her thoughts before the video, just as, like, proof these were her before thoughts before reading the book. But the text reads, "My thoughts beforehand. It's gonna be a wannabe Emily Henry with more showing than telling, and the characters won't have any depth until there's something super sad or traumatic that they're gonna bring up randomly in hopes of giving the character an actual personality." So that was her, like, main thought process, basically. I do know that Hayley Pham's one of her, like, favorite authors is Emily Henry. I couldn't even tell you if, like, the bits and pieces she showed of her writing is Emily Henry. I bought a lot of Emily Henry books, guys. Hopefully I didn't wake anyone up. But I have a bunch of Emily Henry books literally off to the side over here. I have People We Meet on Vacation, Book Lovers, Beach Read, and Happy Place. Everyone was raving about Emily Henry's writing, and every like booktuber I watched was like, Emily Henry is like the goat of writing romance. So I was like, okay, I saw them at Walmart and I said, in my cart it goes. So I am excited to read it. So I can't really attest to any of Emily Henry's like writing style or anything like that. Maybe in the future I will, but as of right now I can't. She makes a comment about saying like, oh, I know the romance is gonna be closed door. Bummer. And obviously like this is something a lot of people had an issue with. Personally, I could do without smut in books. And I feel like that is a like niche opinion. What's it called? I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. To be honest, sometimes I feel like people just throw it in there to throw it in there and it like doesn't make any sense. And sometimes I'm reading it and I just cringe. And that is a personal opinion. But obviously, this is an art book, like I said. Obviously, if she heard this book was closed door and it was a second chance romance, she would not be picking this up at the bookstore. Obviously, it's different because she was sent this book, I believe, or like the Kindle version or something like that. So I do think whoever sent her this book and thought it was a good idea for her to read it should be getting some hate, because why would you choose her? The biggest op for this book at the moment, just based on before even reading it, her thoughts. But a lot of people had issues with that comment because they felt like it was attacking Hayley personally. And I don't know, I feel like that's a personal preference thing. I think it goes either way. I mean, if you like closed door, that's a personal preference. If you like the smut, you like the smut. Like you can like both. It doesn't really matter. I think it's the same when you write a book. You know what I mean? I like writing. Would I write smut in my book? Probably not. Mine would definitely be closed door for the most part, I believe. And I feel like she would hate my book. But obviously, on the same time, some people literally just write books about smut. Like, that's all the book's about. So I feel like it depends on your preferences for that. I don't feel like that was meant as a way to kind of like attack Hayley in a sense. Obviously the delivery and the way she says it obviously comes off a little bit more meany, but I do think that that one's kind of a personal preference thing. Obviously she mentions the showing and not telling, or telling instead of showing. But I feel like obviously that's something, I feel like if you're like a debut author, that does take a lot of talent and a lot of work, especially someone who is like currently working on writing something. I find it so unbelievably hard to be like, am I showing or am I telling? Am I telling you? Am I letting you like feel the vibe of the book? And I'm probably gonna put in bits and pieces about like my process and stuff like that, because sometimes in this review I kind of feel attacked and I haven't even finished writing a book yet. But yeah, the whole showing not telling, I feel like sometimes it is a skill being able to get from point A to point B. Obviously, when you first start writing, you're probably going to be telling. You're going to be like, she's sad, she's crying, she's mad. And then as you grow, you're going to be like, she threw the book at him. She's clearly mad at him because she threw something at him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to expand on those thoughts. Should a book that's being published have that kind of stuff? I guess that's up for you to decide. But overall, I can't attest whether her book is showing or telling, because I have not read it. No one has sent me an arc yet. It is a common issue, and sometimes I even read books now and they say something and I'm like, oh my god, they're literally just telling me everything that happens. Like, they're not letting me think at all. So there are published authors who do the same thing, and I think it also depends on the age range you're talking to. I feel like if you're doing like adult stuff, there's a little less of the telling, but if you are writing for a younger audience, like middle school age or something, like, I feel like there is a little bit more. But yeah, that's all I've got to say.
I'm still on chapter 1. There have been multiple sentences where you read them and you're like, oh, she definitely consulted a thesaurus. The feeling is personified in my stomach. One of my favorite ones. I force myself to perceive its beauty. I have to yield to a conglomerate of pedestrians. So far, I'm right about one prediction. Wannabe Emily Henry.
Okay, she reads one chapter of this book, and her first complaint is the word choices that are used. Her like initial thoughts is like, Hayley consulted a thesaurus, which I find really funny because I love consulting a thesaurus. So here I was like listening to this review and I was like, oh my god, I feel like she's talking about me, and I was like, that's crazy. The first sentence she uses as an example is the something about personified in my stomach, something like that. She claims these are like pretentious words. Personified? I don't think she used it properly in that sentence. Not gonna lie. Personified, I fear personified is not a pretentious word in any way, shape, or form. Personified is literally a literary device that I learned about in middle school. Like, there was nothing pretentious about that. I feel like if you've taken a middle school English class, you know what the word personified means. But basically, it's when you take something that is non-human, like an object or something, and you personify it. Kind of like what they did in Beauty and the Beast with all, like, the lampshade. The lampshade had eyes. He could talk. They personified him a little. Hopefully I used that word right, but I feel like that's not a pretentious word. I don't think she quite used it in the sentence, but I don't know if that was the whole sentence or if there was more to it, so I can't really attest to if she used it correctly. Personified in my stomach doesn't really make sense to me. So I don't know if she's just like thinking of words. I know when I'm like looking for another way to say something, I always be like, what's another way to say this word? And obviously it brings up all the other ways to say it. I click on that word and I look at the definition and I think in my little brain, I'm like, does this make sense? If I use this bigger word, does it make sense? So I feel like maybe she wasn't doing that. I don't know. Can't tell you. But personified is not a crazy word. The next sentence that she had a problem with was, I forced myself to perceive its beauty. Perceive is not a crazy word, my guy. What is going on? I don't know, like, perceive is a normal word. Is it a word that people commonly use in like everyday language? No. But it's not a crazy word. I feel like a crazy word to me is if you tell me it and I go, huh? What is that? Her next sentence that she has an issue with is, I have to yield conglomerate of pedestrians. Conglomerate, couldn't tell you what that word means. Let's search it up. I don't even know how you spell it. The meaning of the word that I think she used is gathered together in a compact mass. I think another thing to know is sometimes words mean different things. You know what I mean? Because this one has multiple different meanings. So this one has, the first one is a number of different things or parts that are put or grouped together to form a whole but remain distinct entities. And then this one, relating to a conglomerate, especially a large corporation. This one, a coarse-grained sedimentary rock composed of rounded fragments with a matrix of finer grained material. I don't think it's that one. And then the last one, gather together in a compact mass. But there's like multiple meanings. So I also feel like if you're only looking at the first one and you go, oh, it may fit, like the way you perceive those words might be different based on what you know, because you might think of it as one of those variations, but they might be thinking of another one, if that makes any sense.
I'm astonished by her forwardness.
I just noticed she had another issue with another sentence. I was astonished by her forwardness. What is crazy about that?
Page 2. Cue the traumatic thing that gives the character personality.
Another thing she brings up is cue the dramatic thing that gives the character personality. I feel that's not crazy. But like, that's not crazy to me, because I feel like if you're trying to write a deep character, obviously there's probably something traumatic. And obviously, depending on, I don't know how she read it, so I can't attest to whether she did a good job or not. But in my head, if obviously I've read books where characters have like tragic things happen to them. And I'd even like to write stories where tragic things happen to characters. But I think there's also a sense of, if you think of a human, if something tragic happens to you, it alters the way you interact with the world. It changes the way you think about things and like do things and things like that. So obviously, I feel like if something dramatic happens, you're going to react in certain ways. And the way, I guess, the character in the book should act should be in line with the tragic thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's say someone witnessed like a tragic car accident. Maybe earlier in the book, they're afraid to get in the car. They don't want to drive. They don't want to be in a car. They would rather walk. You know what I mean? Like those kind of things. And in a sense, that like is part of their personality. Like your personality is like made up of things that have happened in your life and people you interact with and things like that. So like, I don't know what this like fascination with people saying like characters have something bad happen to them and that, like that's their entire personality. because it does alter the way you walk through the world and the way you act and things like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's not a crazy a crazy concept or anything like that. Obviously, I don't know how it's written in the book, so it may be very poorly done. Couldn't tell ya. But my thoughts on that are like, it's not crazy for like something tragic to happen to someone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think every person in the planet has at least had one tragic thing that has like completely changed their view on life and the way they act and things like that. So I don't think it's crazy that our characters in books have that too, to be honest. Like, I don't want to read a book about someone whose life is completely perfect. You know what I mean? That's very unrealistic.
Okay, I don't want to sound like a cynic, but did she have an editor? Not to fix grammatical mistakes, although there have been a couple, but to fix, like, okay, if you have a specific phrase or sentence style, you're not supposed to repeat it a bunch of times, let alone twice on the same page. Mentions people going onto a boat, right? It was meant to hold 200 people, but became 1,000. Literally 2 paragraphs later, opening a convenience store and expanded to 2 locations, which later became 7. That's the same thing. You can't use that twice in the same page. Now that I've established I don't like the writing, and I don't think that the writing flows naturally, it feels very... Let me consult a thesaurus, why don't I? Stilted. The writing is very stilted, stiff and self-conscious, or unnatural. That's how I would describe it. I'm going to try to overlook that as I continue so I can comment on the actual romance, which is my favorite part of a book. I'll save critical thoughts about the writing and just focus on the romance from here on out.
Her next issue is with the like sentence style, I guess. She brings up like 2 examples, which you heard, because I'll let her talk. I do think that's valid.
I lied, and back to talk about the writing. I should have known that the overuse of big vocab words was going to be here. Prevalent. Emphasize how dire the situation was. Effervescent smile. It's a lot, and it feels unnatural. I should have known, because months ago, I saw a video of hers back when she was still talking about books, but it was when she was transitioning into the pretentious phase of talking about books, where she said, oh, I just read this sentence in a book, and I learned a new word. I love when that happens. Then I have to look up the word to know what it means. The word was banal, which I think is not a fancy word. It's just banal. She went through the 3 words that she had found in the book. When she got to banal, she said, and this one, banal. So lacking in originality as to be obvious and boring.
Okay, she pops back on to talk about the use of big words again, and I don't necessarily think in this time she is seeing them as like big words, because she does put them in quotation. Crazy to me that you think those are big words. Like, I feel like when people were talking about her use of big words, let me pull up some examples. I don't even know how you pronounce this word. I'm not even gonna lie. Incandescent, maybe? I don't know. Loquacious. Maybe I'll put like the actual pronunciations. Ineffable? I can't even think of how you pronounce that. But like, I thought she was using those kind of words, because I couldn't tell you what a single one of those words mean. I've never seen those words in writing before. So like, when I heard the review of the review, and it was like she was bashing her for using big words, like in my head, like those are the kind of words I was thinking of. Like words I've never heard in my life that are so big that I couldn't even pronounce. Like, that's what I was thinking. But like prevalent, dire. If you said those words in a conversation, I wouldn't be like, what the frick does that mean? I'd be like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a common word that you use, and you might be like, oh, you're smart. Like, you're using big words. You know what I mean? Like, it's not crazy. Not crazy at all in the slightest. She also on the screen says, I am not saying these are particularly big vocab words. They're just not used in everyday language as often as other words are, so it feels off. And here's my little hot take on this. I'm sorry, but it's writing. If there was any reason to use these big, beautiful words, it is in a book. It is in writing. Because my problem with saying like, because you don't use it in everyday language, it shouldn't be used at all in a book, because it doesn't flow. And I am half saying this because I love using big words. In writing, you use words. Like, I feel like that's obvious. The best place to use these giant big words that nobody says in everyday life is in a book. Because what? But also, my thing is, I love using big words when I write, and it's because I feel like they convey something completely different. I understand if you're just like randomly writing, like, oh my god, lol, she came to my house, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden you throw in a big word and then just continue on as if nothing ever happened. I'm gonna give you an example because I am currently reading A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. It'll be in another video if you want to hear my thoughts on it. But her writing is so unbelievably beautiful, and I am obsessed with this book so far because she does use these big, beautiful words and she forms them into beautiful sentences. Sometimes I'm reading and I'm like, I don't even know what the heck that word means. And like, there's nothing wrong with like searching up what a word means. Like, if you see a word you don't know and you just like ignore it and don't search it up, how are you ever gonna know what the heck that word means? You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll even be reading and find a word that I've never heard of before, search it up and be like, oh, that's such a pretty word. And then like in my writing, if I like find a sentence and I'm like, you know what word would be perfect? That book, that word I learned in that book, because I know what it means now. I have that knowledge. I have unlocked that knowledge in my brain and it is just sitting there waiting to be used. And I feel like, especially if you are someone who likes writing or reading, learning new words is not crazy. But also, like, have you never like done a spelling test in like middle school? Like, that's literally what they did. They would give you a bunch of like big words for your age, and then you'd have to learn how to spell them. Like, I feel like this concept of using big words is like so blown out of proportion. It's crazy to me. So then she goes on to talk about Hayley and her book reviews. And she was like reading a book and she said this word banal, and apparently she said it wrong. As someone whose mom always says words wrong, like, this girl comes up with the craziest pronunciations of words, and I always clock her on it. I can understand clocking her on that. But also, like, that has nothing to do with her book. Nothing to do with her book. If it's a video she did about a different book that she was reading, not one she wrote, like, that's crazy to me. And obviously she's using this as an example to help her in her case of saying, like, Hayley just uses these crazy words. But to insinuate that there's something inherently wrong with her reading a book and not knowing what a word means, people aren't dictionaries. They don't know what every word in the world means. And if you do, props to you. I couldn't tell you what banal means if to save my life. I've never heard that word in my entire life. But to tell me banal is not a fancy word, but prevalent and personified is a fancy word is crazy to me. Crazy to me. But on the other hand, the only reason she brings up her videos is because she is a YouTuber. And we'll get into that conversation a little bit later. But I think the only reason she brings up the videos and she has so much information about Hayley is because it is all online. But I'll save that for the end of all this reviewing video stuff.
And now we have the second traumatic thing for our male main character that's going to give him personality because they will inevitably be very two-dimensional. Yay. Remember what I said earlier about wanting to be like Emily Henry and showing instead of telling, but how she's going to do the opposite and tell us instead of show us? Yeah, it's happening. We're in a flashback. And why do you, two-time state champion quarterback, have a fake football? Good to know he is the two-time state champion quarterback. Wouldn't have known any other way.
So she gives us an example of telling instead of showing, and I feel like that's awkward. I just feel like that sounds like awkward dialogue. Like, why are you mentioning that? You know what I mean? Like, unless it's like, oh my god, like, you were a two-time champion. Like, she sees like a medal on his wall or something. You know what I mean? Like, that whole sentence seems very awkward to me, and dialogue sometimes is pretty hard to do. Not gonna lie. Sometimes I write dialogue and I'm like, I would never say that.
I feel like there are a lot of personal feelings that are being put into this book when they don't need to be. It kind of feels like she's complaining a little bit, minimizing other people's struggles because she had it worse. I don't mean to make your relationship with him sound easy, but at least you have a relationship to struggle with. Interesting. They just had a conversation about him and his struggles and what he's going through with his dad, and she made it all about herself. And earlier, she mentioned that there has to be some kind of accident and fight that happened, and that's why they're not friends anymore. And her great aunt, grandma, whatever, says, "Why don't you apologize to him?" And she's like, "Ugh, it's not that simple." Girl, if you were in the wrong and you haven't apologized after all of these years, you're wondering why he's not talking to you? I don't like this girl. I don't like her.
So then she kind of goes on to talk about like the actual character. And not gonna lie, when I heard her talk about the characters, I was thinking, oh my god, this is freaking Belly from The Summer I Turned Pretty. And you know what? Not all characters are likable. But typically the main characters are likable. But I don't know if, like, when she talks about this part, it 100% gives me The Summer I Turned Pretty. Because when I was reading that book, I was like, oh my god, I hate Belly. She's so freaking annoying. So I don't know. I think it'd be interesting to read the book, and I probably will eventually get the book. Not gonna lie. Especially after this situation, I'm sad. I'm ready to read it. But yeah, I don't know. This whole thing was giving me The Summer I Turned Pretty vibes, but obviously haven't read the book. Couldn't tell you.
This is moving really quickly, not in a good way. The pacing, it's very odd.
So then she goes on to talk about the pacing, which I don't think is a crazy thing to talk about in a review, because when I was like looking into ARC readers, one of the things they suggested like talking about was the pacing of the book. So I don't think that's crazy. Also, the fact that he calls her a little bird. That's such a weird nickname. That's such a weird nickname. That's such a weird, like, you know what I mean? Like, I saw this video of this girl on TikTok one time, like, listing out the worst nicknames ever in books. And I was like, that's a terrible nickname. That's a terrible nickname.
He calls her Little Bird. I don't like that. I'm really not enjoying this. Okay, I'm done with the book. Here's my review. It's not going to be a pretty one. I've spoken enough about the writing. I'm not going to keep talking about it because it's just going to piss me off more. When it comes to the characters, she is extremely unlikable. She's not a good person. She's not a good friend. He's barely in the book. You also don't get his point of view. I personally like dual point of view. You don't get really anything of him. He's not really there. The reason their relationship didn't work out in the first place was because of you guessed it, miscommunication. Was that resolved? Not until the last chapter. So this whole second chance relationship that they're rebuilding and getting to know each other again, and didn't really happen that much. There was barely any build-up. They're just, oh yay, we're together. Oh, and look, here's proof that we could have stayed together before. Oh no, we wasted all these years. Maybe you shouldn't have stayed together. There's also a big thing with grief in the book. I feel like that really overtook the plot. It's supposed to be a romance book. There was little to no romance. There was little to no communication. There was little to no resolution. It was just a lot about her grieving and being selfish and blaming it on the grief. Oh, I'm a bad person because I'm mourning. Oh, I was mean to you and I never apologized to you for this thing that happened. But it's your fault. It's your fault because right now I'm grieving. There was no chemistry. None. Sorry. No chemistry between these characters. She was insufferable. I can see the vision. I can see what she wanted to do. She tried to do. Sorry, let me use bigger words. What she tried to execute. It was very poorly done. This did not read well. I would not call this a romance book. It had middle grade writing, very little plot, and the romance was bad. Sorry. Am I being harsh? Yes. There are so many authors who write fantastic books and spend a long time on them and get the right editors to make it good and then have to work to get an agent and a publishing deal. And this just fell in her lap because people like her videos on the internet. Where was her team? Why did nobody tell her that the writing wasn't good? I'm being very harsh. I understand that. I apologize for how rude this is coming across. If you get the opportunity because of this thing and you take it, sure, 100% go for it. At least give a good product at the end. That's all I ask for. I'm also aware that I'm not an author. I never claimed to be an author. I can't write. I suck at writing, but I'm a reader. So I can tell you my opinion from reading it. I know that my opinion doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but if someone were to ask me, I would not recommend this book. Sorry.
She brings up that, like, the conflict is kind of the miscommunication trope, which I feel like I've never met a person who likes the miscommunication trope. I feel like it's just, like, an easy way to, like, have a conflict. Like, if you don't have, like, a conflict in mind, I feel like that's an easy way to be like, okay, there was just a miscommunication. He said one thing, she said she thought of it this way. Like, okay, there we go, conflict over. I don't think I've ever read a book that has the, like, miscommunication trope that I have liked. So there's that. But yeah, I feel like that's something valid to comment on. You know what I mean? Like, nothing about that is like, that shouldn't have been in the review at all. That, like, that was too far. She does take the end of the video to apologize because she realizes she's coming off really harsh. And I think it's just maybe her demeanor and the way she's saying things. And obviously, she really doesn't like the book. You know what I mean? Like, she very clearly doesn't like the book. But I feel like people are like that. You know what I mean? If it's something they really don't like, they're not going to be smiling and happy and praising it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like it's crazy to be, like, upset at reading a bad book. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, sometimes, like, even movies, sometimes I hate watch them, and I literally only watch them because I hate them so much, and I'm like, "What is going on?" And you're, like, sitting there, and you're, like, critiquing everything that happens. You're like, "Why would they say that? Why would they do that? Like, that's terrible. Like, what?" So I don't feel like that's, like, crazy in a review or anything. Like, I don't think she said anything, like, completely outrageous. She wasn't like, "Hayley Pham, such a bitch, blah, blah, blah." You know what I mean? Like, nothing crazy like that. Like, I was expecting this I was expecting this review to be so crazy and, like, this girl to be throwing F-bombs around and things like that because everyone was, like, acting like everything she said was, like, absolutely crazy. Like, there's a difference between not agreeing with what she said in the review and saying it's, like, a mean review. Like, I don't think anything was, like, very, very mean about this. Obviously, I don't agree with all of it. I wouldn't say she was mean in this review, you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, like, personal attacks. I thought she was gonna go through, like, all of Hayley Pham's video and tear them apart. I thought she was gonna talk about Hayley's appearance, like, I thought she was gonna be, like, making comments about Hayley and, like, things like that. None of that happens. Yeah, so I feel like everyone was, like, hyping up this review of being so utterly terrible and mean that I feel a little let down. Hello, it is editing me. This video is an hour and 30 minutes long, and I think I've only edited 30 minutes. So we're just gonna scrap the rest of it, and we're just gonna have a little chit chat to sum it all up. And I'm not gonna edit this, so hopefully it's a good take. But what I do truly think this comes down to, which she, like, mentions at the end of her video, is there are people that aren't influencers that have to work 10 times harder to get these deals, and it was kind of just thrown on her lap because she is an influencer, which by all means, if I was an influencer and someone decided they were like, "You know what? You're a famous influencer, you want a book deal?" I'm taking that. I'm taking that. But I think the other side of this that I feel like nobody has mentioned at all from, like, the videos I've seen talking about this, I feel like influencers are held to a higher standard when coming out with a product or making something or creating something because you have this parasocial relationship with them. You know so much about their life. Like, Hayley Pham has most of her life on the internet. You can tell her hobbies, you can tell her likes, dislikes, and because that is all available on the internet, you feel more connected to them than you would, let's say, like, a brand like Gucci. Not that I can afford that, but you know what I mean? Like, if Gucci came out with a terrible product, you're gonna be like, "Okay, I expected that." You know what I mean? Like, you know when these, like, luxury brands come out with something stupid? But when you see an influencer do it, you hold them to a higher standard because you feel that parasocial connection with them. You feel like you know them, like, you know what I mean? Like, you spend so much time watching a video and watching their content, like, you wanna support them. And these publishing houses know that these influencers come with a built-in audience, which is a nice thing. But I think as an influencer, not saying that Hayley's book is bad, but I think as an influencer, you need to make sure that the product that you are putting out is good. Because I feel like too many influencers put out products that are just cash grabs, zero effort put into them. There is a negative connotation with influencer brands and influencer products because of this, because too many people take advantage of their fans and their audience and put out terrible products just because they know they're going to buy them because they like watching their videos. And I think creators need to be held to a higher standard because it's not the same as starting a random company. You know what I mean? Like, you have this built-in audience, these people that adore you, that want to support you, that want to buy the things that you are creating. And especially because these people have so much money, they have so many connections at the palm of their hands that they should be trying to do their absolute best to make a great product. And as you can see in this case, Hayley did have editors. She had people on a team, she had like a team behind her. So it is a slap in the face to people. Not saying that her book is bad, once again, I have no idea, I haven't read it. But if the book she's putting out isn't good, objectively, in other people's opinions, it does feel like a slap in the face, because why are you uplifting these people in the publishing industry and publishing their books when it's clear that they aren't putting as much effort in as they should be? Now, once again, I'm not saying Hayley's book is terrible and it's awful. Clearly, she really loves reading. She really loves books. I do watch her channel and watch her reviews and stuff like that. So in no way is like that hateful towards Hayley, but you see it all the time with other influencers. And I think they forget that it's not just a faceless brand. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the CEO is some random person you've never heard of in your entire life. Like, it is an influencer you watch daily. And the people buying that product are the people that are paying your bills. And I feel like they do have every right to be upset if the product they think they're getting isn't what it is said to be. And I say this more in like the fashion kind of industry when people make clothes. If you've seen that, if you've seen the drama with the PJs that were so unbelievably expensive, and there's just so many instances where creators take advantage of their audience to make themselves more money, even though they are already kind of rich. And I think you need to hold yourself to a higher standard. Obviously, writing a book is subjective, and you can think it's amazing, other people can think it's amazing, and there's always going to be someone who's not going to like it. Well, that's all I really have to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I absolutely loved making it. I hated editing it. I feel like my head is still spinning from trying to edit this video. My MacBook is not made for editing YouTube videos because it clearly hates me. I put an hour and 30 minutes of footage in there and it goes, "What is this? Get away." So this video was a struggle. It also took me like 2 weeks to edit this. It also took me like 2 weeks to edit this video. This video was originally supposed to come out on the 1st. And it is the 10th that I'm filming this part and editing it. And it'll come out on the 12th, I think. Yeah, with that said, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like and comment down below. If you didn't, feel free to leave a comment. I'd love to hear your opinion. And let me know what you think about this mess, if you have a different opinion than me. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.